I'm Eva O, and this is the Teakink podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Katie Fox, and I'm a content creator. I'm currently working with a PR firm that writes and pushes out articles on semi-serious news sites. And the goal is to drive traffic to my OnlyFans through getting viral articles that, spread around because people click on them either because they're interested or maybe because they're upset. And so they pitched several different headlines to me, and some of them were very braggy, like I'm a trans model making this amount of money per month on OnlyFans. It pays for my transition, or stuff about like, oh my gosh, I'm so hot, everyone wants to be me, blah. And so my question is, do you think it's something like that could risk ruining my current and future relationships with other sex workers? Because I do, of course, want to get my money's worth out of this agreement, but I also don't want to risk hurting my stance in the community.
Yeah, this is a question of priorities, isn't it? And then a secondary one about what we're putting out there. And I don't think that was the question, but it's a secondary point that's coming to my mind. What we're putting out there and how that's going to affect the perception of sex work in general, whether that's going to be a benefit or to our detriment. And I think that, the goal that Cutie Fox mentions for them is driving traffic to OnlyFans, therefore financial gain, right? So I think if we're just talking financial gain, then yeah, getting in front of as many eyes as possible for a site like OnlyFans is probably necessary. But how you do that, there are probably many options, right? I would say that the majority of people that come my way are probably from interviews that I've done, as opposed to articles that have been written about me. But not everybody has that opportunity, I guess. And so some of us go to agencies or look for marketing people, which is technically what this PR agency is, right? And what are the other options that we have? We can do our own marketing. We can do our social media marketing. We can align with other people, other workers in order to get our eyes in front of more people. Yeah, I guess it would be interesting to see the metrics around the clicks and whether these actually mount into actual subscriptions, to see whether these pathways are financially profitable as opposed to maybe more traditional-ish pathways of co-marketing with other people within the industry, like via shared Twitter posts or whatever, or other social media means, if not things like interviews or creating products to gain greater reach, to etc., like thinking of other ways. I guess I mentioned this because, how do I feel? I guess personally, I'm a sex worker, right? Would say anybody's choice to go through these agencies impact what I think of them? On a level, I'm like, you do what you got to do. And if you think this is going to work for your earning capacity, I want that for you. But then on the other hand, I'm like, do we want to keep contributing to clickbait? I don't know if I hold it against you personally, but I think about it in a overarching thing. And I think it's more important that we can have these conversations as opposed to me saying, no, you shouldn't be doing this or that. Yeah, I'm not doing that at all. I want to have this conversation. I'm very grateful for this question. So is it like something that comes to my mind? It feels a little off contributing to being clickbait. Yeah, I think there are titles that probably wouldn't go around that. I think, things like talking about how well you're doing, whether you are or not, right? I think a lot of these sites are just clickbait. Or what was the other one? Like, I'm so hot and everyone wants to be me. I mean, I know what you look like. You're very hot. But we all got our thing. I'm pretty hot too. Yeah. I think that if you've been in the industry for long enough, all this bullshit is bullshit, and it's just like, I'm kind of behind you, do what you got to do, but also be a little bit, ideally, be aware of how you're potentially contributing to how we are perceived as an industry and as individuals going forward. I think that's something that I'm constantly thinking about. And I am very forthcoming, but I'm also I try to be quite mindful of what I say and I put out there. And I would love to not have to be so careful, but I kind of feel like we're not really at a place where we can be entirely like free with our freedom of expression just yet. I feel like there's still some PR to do around public perceptions of sex work. Yeah, so if your goal is to make that OnlyFans pop, I've already sort of talked about some of the possibilities that are possible without having to necessarily be clickbait. Or if you are going to go down that path, to think about what could be a better or worse story to kind of press upon. I think that when it comes to bragging, I mean, you can, like, I personally I don't take those sites seriously, and I don't know how people can. Maybe I just don't know how to think like that. But I mean, can you not just tell people that it's just like to drive traffic? And the people who don't want to believe that and who want to believe some shallow site, I mean, are they worth interacting with anyway? I don't, this is my opinion. This podcast is about my opinion. So there's my opinion. Yeah, to impact upon current and future relationships. So current and future relationships within the sex work community. It's great to be able to find people who do what you do within this, because it is currently quite a sidelined sector of society, and a lot of prejudice is held against us. And so having people with shared experience can be very comforting and validating, and we can organize better when we're in groups. That all said, it's like every other part of society. There's going to be people who are aligned value-wise with you and not. And you're not going to be able to appeal to everybody, and you're not going to want to. It's not going to be possible to connect with everybody. And I think that if you have a self-critical lens and you're asking these questions about yourself, I think that's a nice basis. And then there's also understanding that you're not going to please everyone, and there are ways to think about your choices that you're making that could make the choices better, but where there are also ways to explain your choices, and the people who are ready to listen can either give you feedback like in this podcast, I guess, or work to understand your perspective and be open to that. And those that are not, I don't know how much we can work with those people anyway, So maybe we just gotta just be consistent and kind and keep our distance. Yeah. So I think that probably encapsulates what I think about your experiments in PR agency territory, which is also quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, I guess this is a sector that I don't really think about very often, but obviously it must be something that's huge because you see these sort of sites pop up and this sort of model happen a lot. But it's something that I don't think about very often. But that we are a part of it, that we have agencies who are going to send press releases about our OnlyFans out. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? that there's like a commercialization of obviously a very commercial thing, but also something that it's not openly accepted, widely accepted. And yeah, it's a curious thought for me to think about these agencies who are catering to this sector of society that isn't quite accepted, but yet going into such public and like huge sort of markets. I guess this is just naive of me to think that this wasn't happening all along with all sorts of different things. So yeah, but I wish you the best and thank you for thinking of how this might affect things wider than yourself. But I think it's even wider than just your friendships. I think it's how we're perceived as an industry. And I think that there's also something in there about understanding your drive, direction, ambition, focus, and who aligns with that or not, and whether those things are working for you and for the industry as a whole. Because I would love to say that you do what you want on an individual level for yourself. And I do believe that, of course, but as this is me putting my perspective on you, you don't have to take it, obviously. But I think there is still some responsibility when you have a platform to be aware of the PR exercise we got to do around what we're doing, essentially, still. So, yeah, hope that was helpful. But thank you for the question. And I wish you the best. And thank you for listening. And I'll speak with you next time.